My Ring doorbell app lit up with a motion alert, and the video showed my son wiping something off a syringe while my daughter-in-law smiled at the camera. I stayed quiet, because the second they realized I saw it, I knew I would not make it out of that house alive. My name is Rhiannon. I am 46, and I work as a hospice nurse. For most of my life, I believed I could read fear in a room the way I read a chart. But nothing prepared me for the moment I realized the fear was coming from my own child. 3 weeks ago, I flew to Charlotte to help my son, Knox, and his wife, Greer, settle into their new house. They called it a fresh start. New neighborhood, better schools someday, bigger kitchen, more space to breathe. Knox sounded excited on the phone, but his excitement felt thin, like paper stretched over something sharp. When I arrived, the house was spotless in that staged way new homes always are. No family pictures, no clutter, no warmth, just echo and clean paint. Greer greeted me with a tight hug and a smile that never reached her eyes. Knox hugged me too, but his hands stayed stiff on my back, like he was checking a box. The first day, I unpacked boxes and folded towels and made myself useful. I told myself I was being silly for noticing how often Greer disappeared into the garage to take calls. I told myself it was normal that Knox kept asking what time my husband, Graham, usually went to bed, what banks we used, where we kept documents. I told myself he was just curious, just planning, just being my boy. But then the second night, I heard Knox and Greer whispering in the pantry. Greer said, soft and fast, "If anything happens, it has to look natural." Knox answered, "Stop saying it like that. You're making it sound worse." I froze in the hallway with a dish towel in my hands. I did not step closer. I did not demand explanations. I just stood there, staring at the pattern in their kitchen runner like it might suddenly tell me what kind of mother I had been. At dinner, Greer poured me iced tea in a tall glass with a lemon wedge. It tasted slightly bitter, like the time I accidentally sipped from a metal water bottle that had been left in the sun too long. I smiled anyway. I took small sips. I watched them while they watched me. Knox started talking about estate planning like it was a weather report. "Dad still has that old will, right?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "You should really update it. Stuff changes, values change." I felt my throat tighten around the tea. I set the glass down carefully, the way I set down a tray of medication at work when something in my gut feels wrong. "We'll handle that," I said calm. "No need to stress." Greer's eyes flicked to Knox. A tiny look, a silent signal. They thought I missed it. Later in the guest room, I texted Graham. I expected an immediate reply because he always replied. He always did. But the message sat there, delivered, no response. I tried calling, voicemail. I told myself he was asleep. Then I told myself his phone was dead. Then I told myself the service in my room was bad. The next morning, I walked downstairs and found Greer standing by the kitchen counter with her laptop open. She clicked it shut too quickly. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Fine," she said. "Just setting up emergency contacts for the house, in case something happens." She slid a clipboard toward me. It had forms, printed and neat, like she'd been waiting. One page had a list of names and numbers for the community gate, the homeowners association, and something labeled medical consent. "Just sign," she said lightly. "It's routine." I skimmed it and my stomach dropped. Under emergency contact, my name was already filled in, not as the contact, as the patient. And the emergency contact listed was Greer. Not my husband, not my sister, Greer. I looked up at her. "Why would you put yourself as my emergency contact?" Greer's smile stayed in place, but her voice cooled. "You're staying here, it's easier. Don't make it a thing." Knox walked in right then like he'd been listening. He kissed Greer's cheek, then looked at me. "Mom, it's just paperwork," he said. "Sign it so Greer can stop worrying." My son, telling me to stop questioning, like I was a child. So I did what I have done 1,000 times in hospice rooms, in family meetings, in moments when someone tries to control the narrative. I nodded. I acted small. I acted agreeable. "Okay," I said, "if it makes things easier." I signed, but I didn't sign my full legal signature. I signed a shortened version, the way I used to sign birthday cards. Because if this ever ended up in court, I wanted the difference to matter. That night, Greer offered me tea again. This time, she watched my mouth as I drank. And within minutes, my body started to do something I recognized from diabetic patients in crisis. My skin went damp. My heart raced and then felt like it was slipping. My hands trembled so hard I could barely set the mug down. I stood up anyway, forcing my legs to work, and I walked toward the front door. Greer moved in front of me. "You're fine," she said too quickly. "It's just anxiety." Knox appeared behind her. His face looked tight, like he was trying to hold back something that did not belong in a son's expression. "I need help," I whispered. "Call an ambulance." Knox didn't move. Greer tilted her head. "You're being dramatic." The room swayed. The air felt thick. I grabbed the edge of the entry table to stay upright, and my vision pinched at the corners like a closing fist. I did not scream. I did not beg. I just stared at Knox, because somewhere inside me, the little girl who used to sit in the bleachers and cheer for him was still alive, still hoping he would do the right thing at the last second. "Knox," I said soft, "please." He looked away. That was the moment my hope died. Quietly, cleanly, like a light turned off. My fingers slipped on the table edge. My knees buckled. And as I fell, I saw Greer's hand move toward the kitchen drawer where the first aid kit was kept. Not to help me. To hide something. I landed on the floor, cheek against cold tile, and my phone buzzed in my pocket with a notification I could not see. I didn't have the strength to reach it. I didn't have the strength to speak. All I could do was listen as Greer said, low and urgent. "If anyone comes, you say she stole insulin. You say she's been depressed." And Knox answered just as low, "Hurry up, the camera." Hold on, tiny break. When I'm editing these late at night, I get tired, and your comments are what keep me going. Hit like, subscribe, and tell me your city, state, or country. All right, now let me take you back. Because the thing about being a nurse is, even when your body is shutting down, a part of your brain stays clinical. It catalogs, it notes details, it tries to survive. I couldn't move. But I could hear the soft click of the front door unlocking. I could hear footsteps outside. A voice I didn't recognize, a woman's voice, asking if everything was okay. Greer answered too loudly, too cheerful. "Yes, thank you, she just got dizzy." The stranger didn't sound convinced. She said something about calling for help. Knox said sharp, "No, don't." And then, from somewhere far away, I heard a siren. Greer's breath hitched. Knox cursed under his breath. They had not planned for someone else to interrupt. The last thing I remember before the world went dark was Greer leaning down close to my face, her perfume sweet and heavy, and her whisper sliding into my ear like a threat. "If you wake up, you won't remember it right," she said. "And if you tell anyone, no one will believe you." When I came back to myself, the first thing I felt was cold. Not the clean air conditioning kind. The deep, bone-level cold that makes your teeth want to chatter even when you are drenched in sweat. Voices floated above me. Not Knox, not Greer, strangers. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" A bright light hit my eyes. I tried to lift a hand, but my arm felt like it belonged to someone else. My tongue was thick. My thoughts kept sliding away before I could catch them. "Blood sugar is crashing," a man said fast. "She's not responding, start dextrose." A needle pinched my skin, then another, then pressure on my wrist. I wanted to tell them my name. I wanted to tell them I was a nurse, that I knew what was happening, that this wasn't an accident. But my mouth wouldn't form the words. I heard Greer's voice, too loud, too practiced. "She's been stressed. She barely sleeps." She said she felt like a burden. Then Knox, quieter, shaky in a way that sounded rehearsed. She has depression. We didn't know what to do." A woman's voice cut through them. Firm, angry. "That's not what I heard last night." I turned my head a fraction. In my blurred vision, I saw a woman standing in the doorway, holding her phone like a weapon. She looked like a neighbor, hair pulled back, house slippers, the kind of person who waters plants at sunrise and notices everything. "She was trying to get to the door," the neighbor said. "Your wife blocked her. I heard you tell that woman not to call anyone, don't lie to them." Greer snapped, "Mind your business." The paramedic didn't care. He said, "Back up, both of you now." I felt hands lifting me, a stretcher, the air changing, the sound of the front gate opening. My body bounced as they moved fast. And then I heard something that sliced deeper than the needles. Knox didn't say, "Mom, I'm sorry." He didn't say, "I'm coming with you." He just stood there, somewhere behind the neighbor, and asked one question. "Is she going to remember any of this?" The paramedic answered without looking at him. "If she survives, we'll see." Survive, like it was a coin flip. The ambulance doors slammed. The siren started. The neighborhood lights streaked past the small window. My mind kept trying to name what I was feeling, but it wouldn't settle on one word. Betrayal was too clean. Terror was too simple. It felt like grief, except the person I was grieving was still alive. It was my son, the son I thought I had. At the hospital, everything turned into white walls and sharp smells. Somebody asked if I had allergies. Somebody asked if I was diabetic. Somebody asked if I had taken anything. I could not answer. They called my husband. I found out later. They called him, and when he finally picked up, he was on the interstate, driving like his life depended on it. I drifted in and out for what felt like days. Sometimes I saw faces leaning over me, a nurse adjusting a line, a doctor's mouth moving while my brain lagged behind the words. Severe hypoglycemia. Insulin present. She denies diabetes. Possible malicious administration. One night, I woke up long enough to see Knox standing near the foot of my bed. Greer was beside him, hands clasped like she was praying. Knox stepped forward. "Mom." I tried to speak, but my voice came out thin. "Why?" He swallowed. His eyes were glossy. For a split second, I saw the boy he used to be, the one who cried when he lost his first puppy, the one who held my hand at the dentist even though he was embarrassed. Then Greer moved, just half a step, and that softness disappeared. Knox said, "You scared us. You had that episode and you were confused." Greer nodded quickly. "You were talking about not wanting to be here anymore." My skin crawled. It was like watching them build a cage around me while smiling sweetly. I forced my fingers to curl around the blanket. Grounding, one small thing I could control. A nurse walked in at that moment. She was young, with tired eyes and a badge that said her name was Juniper. Juniper looked at me, then looked at Knox and Greer, then looked again at me. Something in her face tightened, like she recognized a lie without being able to prove it. She said, calm and professional, "Visiting hours are almost done. I need you to step out so we can do assessments." Greer protested, "We're family." Juniper didn't blink. So is her husband, and he is on his way, please step out. Knox hesitated. Greer grabbed his sleeve and guided him toward the door, still smiling, still acting like she was the one being inconvenienced. When they were gone, Juniper closed the door and lowered her voice. "Can you understand me?" she asked. I nodded small. "Can you speak at all?" she asked. I opened my mouth, my throat burned. "Yes, a little." Juniper's eyes softened. "Okay, I need you to tell me something. Did someone give you insulin?" My heart punched my ribs. I stared at her and felt tears rise, hot and humiliating. Juniper glanced at my chart, then back at me. "Because your labs are not matching their story, and there's a mark on your arm that looks like an injection." I swallowed. My mouth tasted like metal. "I didn't do this." Juniper nodded once, like she had already decided to believe me. "Good. Then don't waste energy trying to convince them. Save it. I'm going to get the doctor and the social worker, and I'm going to make sure nobody discharges you into their care." That word hit me hard. Discharge, into their care, like I was a package they could take home. "No," I whispered too urgently. "Please, my husband, call him." "He's already listed as your contact," Juniper said. Then her expression shifted. Actually, he's not. That's the strange part. Your paperwork lists your daughter-in-law. I felt my stomach drop. The clipboard, the forms, Greer making me sign. I pressed my lips together until they stopped trembling. I didn't sign my normal signature. Juniper's brows lifted. That matters. It mattered because I had been scared, and even scared, some stubborn part of me had left a breadcrumb. The doctor came in with the social worker. They asked questions in a careful way. Had I tried to harm myself? Did I feel safe at home? Was anyone hurting me? My eyes kept filling, not because I was weak, but because the truth was so ugly it didn't fit in my mouth. I chose my words like stitches. I was fine, I said. Then I drank tea, then I couldn't stand. I asked my son to call for help. He refused. The social worker leaned in. Did your daughter-in-law make the tea? Yes, I said. The doctor asked, do you remember receiving an injection? My mind flashed on Greer's hand near the drawer. The whisper about memory. The way Knox asked if I would remember. I don't remember the needle, I admitted, but I remember them talking about making it look natural. The doctor's face tightened. We'll document that. The social worker said, I'm placing a note that you are not to be released to your son or his wife, only your husband or someone you personally approve. Relief hit me so hard I almost sobbed. Then the door opened again, and Graham walked in. My husband looked like he'd aged a year in one drive. His hair was messy, his eyes bloodshot, his shirt wrinkled like he'd pulled it on with shaking hands. He came straight to me and took my hand so carefully, like he was afraid I would break. Ryan, he whispered. Oh, honey. I tried to be strong. I tried. But the moment I felt his palm against mine, something inside me cracked. I cried without sound at first, because my throat still wouldn't let me do more. Graham leaned down, forehead to mine. I got your texts late. I was in a meeting and my phone was on silent. When I saw the missed calls, I thought I was going to lose you. My eyes darted to the door. Knox, I whispered. Greer. Graham's jaw tightened. They told me you took insulin from someone's purse. I stared at him. I'm not diabetic. I know, he said. His voice shook with controlled rage. And I know you don't do dramatic, you don't do attention, you do facts. A sob tried to climb out of me. I swallowed it down. Graham, I said, forcing the words, they tried to kill me. For a second, his face went empty. Then it filled with something I had never seen in him before. Not anger, not grief. A cold focus. He squeezed my hand once. Okay, he said softly, then we do this the right way. That was my husband, not loud, not violent, just steady like a door locking. Knox and Greer came back that evening with flowers that looked expensive and a smile that looked borrowed. Greer walked in first. Oh, sweetheart, she cooed like I was a child. We were so worried. I stayed quiet. I watched her eyes flick to the machines, to the staff, to Graham. She was calculating the room. Knox stepped closer. Mom, you really scared us. Graham stood up. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse. He just asked, gently, why didn't you come with the ambulance? Knox blinked. What? Graham repeated it, calm. The neighbor said you didn't leave with your mother. Why? Knox's mouth opened. No sound came out for a moment. Then Greer jumped in, too quick. It happened so fast, she said. We thought we would meet them there. Graham tilted his head. But you didn't. Greer's smile twitched. We were in shock. Graham nodded like he accepted that, like he believed it, like he was letting them relax. Then he said, still gentle, the hospital has security footage of who walked into the emergency department and when. I'm sure it will clear everything up. Knox went pale. Greer's hand tightened on the flower stems until her knuckles whitened. And in that exact moment, I understood something with terrifying clarity. They didn't just want me quiet. They wanted the story. They wanted to control what everyone believed. So I did what I do best. I stayed calm. I stayed small. I let them think their performance was working. Because while they were busy acting innocent, Juniper was already printing copies of the intake paperwork. And the signature at the bottom did not match my legal name. Juniper came back the next morning with a manila envelope tucked under her arm, her face set in that quiet, competent way nurses get when they are about to protect a patient from something ugly. She placed the envelope on my tray table and slid out 3 items. A copy of the intake paperwork Greer shoved at me in the kitchen, a close-up photo of the signature, and a printout of the hospital's visitor log. Graham leaned over my bed, reading without speaking. I watched his eyes harden, 1 line at a time. Juniper pointed with her pen. Your chart says you were admitted without identification. That's unusual. But what's more unusual is that someone tried to list your daughter-in-law as the only contact. No husband, no spouse, no backup. My mouth went dry. She did that on purpose, I whispered. Juniper nodded. I agree, and here's the visitor log. Your son and his wife did not come to the emergency department that night. Not once. They didn't check in. They didn't ask for you. They didn't speak to staff. The first time they showed up was after you were stabilized, when they thought you'd be too confused to talk. A hot wave of nausea rolled through me, not from medication, from the idea that my child listened to sirens and chose distance. Graham exhaled slowly, controlled. Okay, he said, the same calm he used in courtrooms back when he still practiced law. Then we move carefully. That day, a detective came to my room. His name was August. He had kind eyes that didn't match the heaviness in his voice. He asked me to tell him what I remembered. I did not embellish. I did not cry through it. I treated my own story like a chart note because facts are harder to twist. Dizziness, my son refusing help, Greer blocking the door, the whisper about memory, Knox asking whether I would remember. August listened, then said, We're going to request the toxicology report and a forensic exam of the injection site. Greer and Knox came back that evening, and this time Greer brought a folder. She walked in smiling, glossy and bright like she was on a stage. I printed some things for the doctors, she said sweetly. Just to help, about depression and confusion. Sometimes older women get scared and make choices they regret. Older women, like I was already a story she could narrate. Graham took the folder from her without opening it. Thank you, he said politely. Greer blinked, thrown off by his calm. Knox moved closer to my bed and tried to take my hand. Mom, I'm sorry you had a bad night, but you have to stop accusing us. You're stressing Dad out. I didn't pull away. I didn't slap his hand. I just looked at him and held my voice steady. I'm not accusing you, I said. I'm statting what happened. Greer's smile tightened. Ryan, honey, your memory is not reliable right now. Graham stepped between her and my bed, still calm. Actually, the staff documented her orientation, and the doctor will be happy to explain what is reliable and what is. Greer's eyes flicked to Juniper at the door, to the security camera in the hallway, to August standing quietly near the corner. She recalculated again. Then she tried a different tactic, softer, warmer. You're safe, she told me, voice trembling like she cared. We love you, we just want to take you home. Home, into the same house where I collapsed. My pulse quickened, but I stayed quiet. My silence was not weakness anymore. It was strategy. Not yet, I said. Knox's face twisted just for a second and something sharp flashed through. Anger, fear, desperation. He leaned in closer, too close. Mom, please, we're family. August's voice cut in. Step back, sir. Knox straightened quickly, acting innocent. I'm just talking to my mother. August didn't move. You can talk from there. Greer swallowed. Her lips pressed together. She looked at Graham, and her tone shifted into something almost threatening, wrapped in a smile. This is going to look really bad for you, she said. Dragging your own son, people will talk. Graham nodded, like he appreciated the advice. They can. That was micro twist number 1 for me. I expected rage. I expected confrontation. Instead, Graham gave them nothing emotional to grab. After they left, Graham sat beside me and took out his phone. I already called our estate attorney, he said. I didn't tell him details. I just asked him to lock down everything. No changes, no inquiries, no information to anyone but us. I stared at him. Was someone asking? Graham's jaw flexed once. Greer called last week, asked questions about timelines. What happens when one spouse dies? How quickly adult children inherit? He said it felt off. My stomach turned. So she was planning before I even arrived. Graham nodded. And now we let her keep thinking her story is working. That night I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Knox's face turned away while I was on the floor. I kept hearing Greer's whisper like it was taped to the inside of my skull. But in the early morning, Juniper slipped into my room with her phone in her hand and her eyes wide. Do you have a Ring doorbell? She asked quietly. My heart jumped. At home, yes, why? Juniper glanced toward the hallway. Your husband stepped out to make a call. A neighbor called the hospital asking for you by name. She said she has video. My mouth went dry. Video of what? Juniper lowered her voice even more. The neighbor's camera faces the driveway. She recorded your daughter-in-law taking a small cooler to the trash can after the ambulance left. A cooler, my mind flashed to a lunchbox, a container to keep something cold, like insulin. When Graham returned, he didn't look surprised. He looked ready. He told me the neighbor's name was Holland. She lived across the street and didn't like Greer because Greer treated the neighborhood like a showroom and people like furniture. Holland forwarded the footage to Graham. We watched it on his phone, leaning close together. There was Greer, hair in a messy bun, moving fast. Knox stood by the garage like a lookout. Greer opened the trash bin, dropped in the cooler, then looked straight at the camera and froze for half a second, like she'd just remembered surveillance exists. Then she lifted her chin, smiled faintly, and walked away like she owned the world. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. Graham didn't touch me right away. He just said, okay, again, quiet, controlled. Micro twist number 2 came later that afternoon, when August returned with a new expression. We got your toxicology, he said. It's insulin, but not the kind a person would typically have around. It's veterinary insulin. Greer had been clever. She thought it would be harder to trace. She thought it would look like a random medical mistake. August continued. We also obtained the neighbor's video, and we requested a warrant for the house, specifically the trash bins. If the cooler is still there, it will help. My hands shook. What if they already took it? August's eyes held mine. Then we look for purchase records, shipping, online receipts. We follow the money. Graham squeezed my hand once. They left a trail. People like that always do. 2 days later, I was discharged to a rehabilitation center. Not the house, not their care, not their control. The first night there, my mind finally felt clear enough to do what I've always done for patients. I documented. I wrote down every detail I remembered. The times of day, the words they used, the way Greer's eyes moved when she lied. I asked Juniper to print my medical records. I asked August for the case number. I asked Graham for our attorney's direct line. I did not have to scream to fight. I just had to be thorough. Micro twist number 3 hit like a punch when August called Graham one morning, and Graham put the phone on speaker so I could hear. We found the cooler, August said. It was still in the bin, buried under yard waste. Inside was a needle cap and a small vial. The lab confirmed insulin residue. I pressed my fingers to my mouth to keep myself steady. August continued, and there's more. We pulled Greer's online purchase history through a subpoena. She ordered veterinary insulin from a site that ships discreetly. It was delivered to their old apartment before the move. Graham's voice stayed even, so it was premeditated. Yes, August said. We're filing charges. Attempted murder and conspiracy. Your son is being arrested as well. I didn't feel triumph. I felt something colder, a recognition that this was real and no amount of denial could put my family back together. Knox called me from jail that night. I didn't answer. Greer called too. I didn't answer. The next week, their attorney tried to paint me as confused, unstable, dramatic. She gave interviews about depression and a mother who can't accept boundaries. Graham didn't respond publicly. He didn't argue. He didn't beg anyone to believe us. He just let the evidence speak. The neighbor's video, the veterinary insulin, the vial in the cooler, the altered paperwork, the visitor log showing they stayed away until they thought I'd be silent. Greer's story collapsed the moment facts showed up. Knox took a plea deal first, not because he suddenly grew a conscience, but because he was weak under pressure. He blamed Greer. He cried. He swore he never meant for me to die, only to scare me into changing documents. I heard that and laughed once, a bitter sound that didn't feel like me. Scare me into changing documents. That is what my son reduced my life to, a signature. Greer went to trial. Her face in the courtroom was smooth, controlled, still trying to charm the room. But when Holland testified about hearing me trying to reach the door, and when Juniper testified about the contact paperwork, Greer's smile finally slipped. The verdict came back guilty. The sentence was long enough that she will grow old in prison. Knox received fewer years. He might come out someday. He might even try to find me. That was when my real silent revenge happened. Not in court, not on television, not in some dramatic speech. In a quiet office, with an attorney and a notary, I changed every document that had my name on it. Our house, our accounts, our life insurance, everything. I removed Knox completely. No exceptions, no loopholes, no future grandchildren clause, nothing. I didn't leave him a letter. I didn't explain. I didn't have to. I left everything to a foundation for victims of family violence, and I named it after the woman who called for help when my own son wouldn't. The Holland Grant. Weeks later, Knox sent a message through his attorney asking for forgiveness, asking for another chance, asking for me to remember the boy he used to be. I read it once, then asked Graham to shred it. Because the boy used to be didn't matter anymore. The man he became tried to erase me with a needle, and my final answer was written in ink he could never touch.